This is an open letter to Bill Maher. Bravo, sir, bravo. Hope everything is fine. It's for the first time I watched your full show, because I usually skip all over the guests because I really don't need to hear what they have to say, because but this time I listened what your guests had to say, all of them, and because it's a very wide sample of almost all of the white people's society in the Western civilization. In the Western civilization, you had a very diverse sample for once in your show, but still the voice of, this is what I'm saying, you had a very wide sample of white people who are running the white empire, but at least the sample of the white people involved in running the white empire was large. So it was you yourself, Bill Maher, as a representative of the liberal capitalist, Bill Maher, because let's face it, because liberal capitalism has worked for you. Your life has been nice and interesting, and liberal capitalism has worked for you, so you're a fan. Why wouldn't you be? Salute. Steve Bannon, who presumably thinks he understands the pain of the blue-collar worker, who he rightfully sees as being shafted, and he's not a fan of liberal capitalism. He's more a fan of liberal socialism, more than he likes to admit. He likes factories with lots of workers, and workers are going to come back, and I'm not sure what Steve Bannon is thinking, because the only thing Steve Bannon should be thinking is calling for universal basic income. That's the only way you can bring back the middle class in post-industrial society, post-digital age society. That's the only way you can bring back middle class, is to bring some kind of sanity to income distribution, i.e. added productivity, distribution of the added productivity throughout the society in more even-handed manner, so everybody can have a normal life without having to work 3 jobs. So, manufacturing, you can't, what I'm trying to say is, it's better for Steve Bannon to start thinking in terms of work is not going to be paying for these people's lives. From now on, work, if you're thinking in the way of increasing the number of the middle class, Mr. Steve Bannon, if you feel the pain of the lower classes, if you think of increasing the size of the middle class, that only happens if you have universal basic income. And the money for that, the only way it can come is either you print it, or you take it from the people who are taking a lot of the added productivity in. That would be the bankers and the information technologists and all those who have been able to harness the power of the digital age. Those few who have been able to harvest most of the productivity of the digital age in North America and Western Europe. The reason that Western Europeans are also starving, as Mr. Bill Maher said it, is because a lot of that added productivity that has come through the digital revolution of the Western Europe has gone to North America, i.e., internet service providers of North America have found their way in Europe and have dominated the European digital market for most parts. Digital commerce. That's why, you know, the income has gone, a lot of the income from Europe as well also has gone to North America, and but you know that increases the maiden GDP, but the unequal, unbelievable income distribution amongst of this added productivity is the main reason you have the problem, and this has nothing to do with China. And the thing about, let's see who else was on this panel of Mr. Bill Maher in, I think it's April 11th or 10th, whenever his show was. It was Bill Maher, Steve Bannon, Piers Morgan, and Josh Rogan something. And this Josh Rogan guy seemed to be the sanest of the panel. He was the youngest, but it seemed he was, you know, somewhat the sanest of the bunch. Imagine that. But they were all white. What Bill Maher, Steve Bannon, Piers Morgan, and Josh Rogan have in common is that they are the owners of a white empire, white imperialism. They are the owners of a white empire, and they were discussing, you guys, Mr. Bill Maher, were discussing the problems that empires run to at this point in their evolution. Although you never admit that you had an empire or you wanted an empire, you just came about an empire. Okay, although you don't like to admit, but you are the empire, and you have the problems that empires have had at this point in their evolutionary life. Look at French Guyana and the Guyana, which is supposedly the British Guyana. These are two prison colonies that was created in South America that eventually they became countries, but they started as prison colonies for, as the names go, the British Guyana and the French Guyana, as the names indicate. They started life as a prison colony to send French citizens or Algerian citizens or any citizens of the empire, you know, because let's face it, this guy, Palestinian guy, that, you know, we're supposed to, you know, cut his balls off, that was standing up for some kind of Palestinian rights as human, the first right being the right of staying alive, being able to stay alive. And you're basically saying, although Palestine or Israel or whatever you want to call it, although this is part of the empire, but this particular group of people have less rights than the other group of people in our empire. This is when you know you're fucking up the empire. Because you either look at every member of the empire that you claim, you know, United States claims planet Earth. That's why you have 7 fleets, and you know, control 7 seas, and you have, you know, the Northern Command and the Southern Command and Central Command and Eastern. You can have that if you treat everybody fairly. But you haven't been doing that, have you? It's sort of like, no. You have to literally live by our rules, and our rules change daily. To Mr. Trump. You have to live by our rules, and our rules change daily, and half the time we really don't have access to the brightest minds. So, here goes the tariffs. Here's the thing, Mr. Steve Bannon doesn't apparently get the point that you can only start a war by doing this kind of behavior, because there is no success in this. Americans don't want to have the standard of living of a factory worker in China. Are you kidding me? Who wants that? And if you have passed the point of manufacturing that has become automated or soon will be, you have to start thinking how income has to be this all this wealth that is being created by all these robots is landing in only a few hands, and we have to take from them and make a universal basic income for the rest. And no, China is not the enemy. What the thing that these four people had in common in their panel is that they're they're a wide representation, but still it's a wide representation of the white empire. And you know, the conservative one is the Pierce Morgan fellow, who brings in British colonial values, and he basically said, yes, you should fuck the Palestinian up the ass if they step out of line, because they're standing up for the natives over there, but the guys we support are the settlers. Here's the thing: forget about what their ideas are. I'm an alien, not from this planet. As such, I just see settlers and natives. In this case, they can be distinctly separated by the color of their skin. The settlers are white. Surprise! They're from the very north of the northern hemisphere, so they're fair skinned. And the natives are either brown or black. Surprise, because this is their native land and it's got a lot of fucking sunshine. So the idea that Mr. Pierce Morgan, the old colonialist, British colonialist pig, no, not the Pierce Morgan, he's a gentleman. I mean the colonialist pig that is the nature of the British form of colonialism, is that no, anybody standing up for the natives is the bad guy. Anybody stands up for the settlers, a large portion of which happen to just be also have British citizenship as well as their Israeli citizenship. Standing up for them is good, but standing up for the natives over there is bad. I.e., standing up for the white people is good. You know, the British citizens who are also Israeli citizens, and the Polish citizens who are also Israeli citizens, and American citizens who are also Israeli citizens, standing up for these settlers from our countries who have settled in Asia, from our countries in Europe and North America. They have gone over there and they have settled in Asia, what piece of land you call Asia. You say supporting these settlers is just right, but supporting the natives is wrong. And I'm thinking to myself, four white people sitting around the table agreeing that supporting white people is right. It's not that difficult to imagine, and you're all doing it, and there is no representation by any of those people you have uprooted. Okay, here's the thing, Mr. Bill Maher, you have to try to investigate this Sharia that you don't like. I don't like. You don't like. But I think the reason I don't like, it's obvious why I don't like Sharia law. But why am I here? Because I like to stay away from Sharia fucking law. You see where I'm going with this? Why are you there? This is what I'm trying to say. Try to wrap your mind around this, Mr. Bill Maher. The reason I'm here is because I don't like Sharia law, and Sharia law certainly doesn't like me. That I have understood. Therefore, I'm staying as far away from Sharia law as possible. I understand you're not a fan of Sharia law either, Mr. Bill Maher. But you know how you stay, if you don't like something, you stay away from it? That means you don't go to their land. Certainly you don't go to invade their land, because when you invade somebody's land, they are uprooted just by nature. When you water down an ant colony, The ants are uprooted. Some of them die, drowned, but most of them are uprooted, and they start moving around to look for a new home. And some of them start going up your trousers and up your pants and up your leg looking for their new home. And they may bring Sharia law with them. Whatever their culture, the ant culture is, they bring it. They're still ants. You know, you can't make rabbits out of them, but so to have a rabbit culture, no, they're still ants. You have uprooted them, but they still ants, and they bring ant culture wherever they go. So this idea that Mr. Bill Maher, on one hand, you support European white settlements in Asia, but you absolutely hate what has resulted to a lot of the Asian culture being spread around you, where you exist. And you're thinking, why this culture is around me? Well, it was over there until you uprooted it. You help in the uprooting of the Arabs and the Middle Easterners from their shithole. You help uproot them by literally pushing them off the land. Imagine the whole idea of uprooting. You take a tree, you uproot it, and you throw it in the river. It will find somewhere to hang. Maybe it stays alive if they can find somewhere down the river to hang. That's the whole meaning of uprooting. Once you pick it up, that tree will hang wherever it would be more beneficial to its existence. And if it cannot hang to where is more beneficial to its existence, it will die. And this is the whole idea of refugees that you have formed. Israel have formed almost all the refugees that are in Europe from Middle East and North Africa. But you are for Israel because that's where white people are getting a foothold and getting a bigger piece of land. White people in Asia, you support that, but you hate the fact that they have uprooted so many of send you so many of your neighbors. Send you so many of your neighbors that you hate, that just happen to be brown and black, and surprise, surprise, from the Middle East and North Africa. The Europeans are getting a larger portion of that. Europeans are getting a much more than you. Here's the thing, Mr. Bill Maher. Have you told the Europeans, have Uncle Sam's managers informed the Europeans that they should prepare themselves, the Europeans, to be on the receiving end of maybe at least 5 million new refugees, and this time from supposedly Iran, I believe, that is, again, has gone under the target, is a possibility of showing, teaching these motherfuckers a lesson as we taught the rest of North Africa and Western Asia. You have to prepare right now the Europeans that, hey, you are going to be on the receiving end of at least 5 new refugees and asylum seekers, because we're about to throw some shit into the fan in yet a new piece of West Asia. On behalf of whom? On behalf of your white settlement in Israel. This is going to be another incursion into Asia on behalf of the white settlers who are settling brown land by force. Israelis didn't go to integrate into the native Arab society, which they could have done. They started as an integrated society, as a desegregated society. Then Israelis decided to segregate the societies and push all the brown people, the native browns, out and create a whites-only colony. And surprise, surprise, the 4 members of Bill Maher's table were all in agreement that yes, we are always going to be for our white colony in Israel. That goes without question. But so how far we should fuck the locals? Should we really fuck them, or should we just fuck them? Here's the thing. Here's the thing, folks. Mr. Bill Maher, I don't like Sharia law. I have stayed away from Sharia. If you don't go over there, we have this thing that we say, if you don't touch shit, the shit will eventually form a crust on it. If you see a cow shit somewhere, cow dung somewhere, if you don't touch it, you won't smell it, because pretty soon after it dropping off, a dry layer forms on top of shit, and you don't smell it anymore, and eventually it will go away, but you won't smell it as long as there is this thin dry layer on top of that pile of shit. When you can smell it a lot more is when you start spreading that shit, breaking that thin dry crust apart and bringing a lot of the liquid around, spreading it around. That's where you have to smell it. Well, that's the whole thing about Sharia. Sharia is the customs. Yeah, I understand it has a religious aspect to it, but let's put it as a custom. Sharia is the customs of a shithole that I don't wish to live in. Sharia is the custom of many shitholes in that area. If you only go in as tourists and look at them and go back home, you don't have to have them back home. They will not come to your land. If you leave them, in fact, this is what a good empire would do. A good empire, there is a good empire, if you white people can understand. A good empire not only will it build itself, but also help others to build themselves. Remember in the Marshall Plan? I guess the Marshall Plan was only Marshall Plan because you weren't scared of Europeans because they're also white. Surprise! The thing about you is, like, if the other side is white, I'm going to be nice, try to be nice, understanding, try to be understanding, unless the other guy is Russia. Because I saw this drawing in the internet that they were trying to distinguish between the facial features of Russians and Europeans, or I guess the British, and saying that, yeah, you see the Russians are white, but their facial structure is different, so therefore I guess it's kosher to kill them. Salute. British are dying to find a reason to kill people. But that's the thing. Mr. Piers Morgan, as a true British colonialist, who this American colonialist apparently, are learning from, Piers Morgan is the first guy to jump out and say, yes, maybe it works. This subtracting China from our economy, maybe it works. It works in what? It works in bringing war? Of course it. I think you do a stupid thing once too many times, you're going to bring a war. I come and poke my finger in your eye, Mr. Piers Morgan, and if I poke my finger enough times in your eye, we're going to have a problem. I'm sure we will. Yeah, it will work towards what? A better world by trying to, exclude China because they're yellow, they're not white, they're not European. We have to exclude them. They are something we should scare of. Remember the German concentration camps remember the Japanese concentration camps? They look very different from us, so they cannot be trusted. And that's, I guess, that's, Mr. Pete Hegseth new policy in recruitments for, Uncle Sam's forces is that, yeah, we are not very enthusiastic about the brown and black people joining, or Chinese joining, or Indians joining. We are mostly about white people joining. Why? Because, surprise, surprise, if you're running a white empire, having a multiracial army really is not going to be helpful, because eventually these people will realize that there is, the enemy is never white. Is usually enemy happens to be brown, black, red, yellow, and the enemy is never Europeans. The enemy, our enemy is always the enemy of Europeans. And then when you try to explain to them that, okay, China is not in the Gulf of Mexico, going up your ass. You're in South China Sea going up China's ass. And how is it then you have the nerve to say China is is our enemy? If China was in your enemy, China would have been in the Gulf of Mexico going up your ass. China is there doing their thing in South China Sea, and it something that you have to let China and its neighbors to come to some sort of a meaningful understanding based on the natural balance of power over there, which you do. These Nicaragua, Honduras, and El Salvador, all these shitty small countries understand that what is the balance of power, and they understand their position as compared to Uncle Sam. And anybody coming in and trying to distort the balance of power in favor of, I don't know, Cuba, you're appalled that how dare this outside country has come to in order to what? Make Cuba powerful enough to be America's counterweight? Are you fucking kidding me? That's the whole idea what you're doing to Taiwan. Uncle Sam's managers are in Taiwan in order to what? Try to put enough weight in Taiwan's part of the deal to counter China. It's sort of like an island with a population of very small population as compared to China. Can it naturally be a counterweight to China? No. Japan, can it naturally be a counterweight to China? No. So you're doing an unnatural act of trying to put enough weight in Taiwan in order to presumably counters China's weight. This is an unnatural act. But because this is white imperialism, you don't mind doing unnatural things. Well, unnatural thing is what causes war. Unnatural thing is seeing that the labor is cheaper over there, and yet, more and more the labor is going to be automated, and understanding that universal basic income is the only way to go towards the any kind of sane solution, but emphasizing that no, our peasants have to work for their living, even if that work is unnecessary, but our peasants have to work. Salute. But they're trying to sell they're trying to sell white imperialism by making China the boogeyman. It's sort of that Chinese are somehow at fault for working for us for so cheap. Everywhere, any white guy you talk to, any white guy you listen to in the media, is bound to say that yes, we have a problem with China. Why? Because they work for so fucking cheap. Well, was that has that hurt you or helped you? Well, it helped us. We've been, living high on the hog for a very long time, but the only thing necessary for living on the hog forever, for a foreseeable future, is for you to redistribute wealth in your own land properly and get it over with. But you don't do that. You're not, no, 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 no. We're not going to touch our money. Chinese are the problem. You're trying to sell racism and racial war and another war with another country and another country and another country and another country. You have already attacked Russia. You're going to attack Iran. Then you're going to attack China. While the solution was you start printing universal basic income and not try to sell white imperialism through advocating that China is an enemy, Russia is an enemy, Iran is an enemy, Korea is an enemy, Venezuela is an enemy, Brazil is an enemy, Canada is an enemy, Greenland is an enemy, Denmark is an enemy, Mexico is an enemy, China, did I say China? China is an enemy. Draw a line under it. China is an enemy. There is no question why Piers Morgan is seen likes to get into the conversation, because this is a conversation between white people basically trying to agree that should we fuck 'em or should we just fuck 'em. Again, Mr. Bill Maher, you don't want Sharia law. You don't go touch that shit on the corner that has dried off. You don't go touch it, because some of that is going to get on you, and you're going to smell like shit. But you don't do that. You have been invading and trying to destabilize these countries with stable governments. You've been trying to destabilize them. This destabilization uproots a lot of people. Many of them end up in Europe. That's where Mr. Tucker Carlson comes and starts screaming why Europe is looking like Middle East and North Africa. Well, when you destabilize these Middle East and North African countries, their population, surprise, surprise, uprooted, end up in Europe. And no, Mr. Bill Maher, why Saudi doesn't accept Arab refugees? Because you have uprooted them. Saudi did not uproot the Palestinians. So Jordanians did not uproot the Palestinians. The Egyptians did not. You uproot the Palestinians and then you expect other Arabs to take in what you have uprooted? Why? And where would this policy end? As you go slowly, you uproot more Arabs. You send them back, and I guess those countries in the back should accept more of their own citizens that you keep throwing back in their face as you conquer more land. Are you not seeing this, Mr. Bill Maher? Are you not seeing this, Mr. Bill Maher? That if you uproot them, you own them, but you don't want them. You didn't want them in Israel. You're certainly not going to want them in New York. So what to do with them? Well, most of them will eventually try to end up in Europe because they're looking for a safe, secure place. And they're going to take their ant culture with them, their Sharia culture with them. You can't object to their culture. You already uprooted them from their land. You want to change the nature of the tree as well? Sir, you can uproot trees, but you can't change the tree. If you uproot a cherry tree, you're going to still have a cherry tree, a very almost dead cherry tree, but it's still going to be a cherry tree. You can't say, I'm going to uproot cherry trees in Palestine, but I expect these cherry trees to be, to be grape trees in Los Angeles, in New York, at Columbia. This is what you're doing. You're saying this was what you went on that the guy said, why would this guy, with regards to this Palestinian that you have incarcerated and deported and is still going through the court system, with regards to this fellow, you have come out and said that yes, we should throw him out, certainly, because he has asked for the destruction of Western civilization. Well, you should actually, Mr. Bill Maher, the intellectual, wannabe intellectual, you should take a step further. Why would this fucking guy think of actually saying, pronouncing, wishing the destruction of Western civilization? Why? What has happened to this motherfucker that is screaming like this? You don't want to know that, because if you did, the answer is quite simple. I know you know. You can have figured it out by yourself, because as you said, he's Palestinian. So there was this young Palestinian fellow whose civilization was destroyed by the Western civilization. Literally, the Palestinian civilization is being destroyed by the help of Western civilization, and you wonder why he wishes for the destruction of the Western civilization, even though he's studying in Western civilization, because it's the Western civilization which has uprooted his family. And you're saying, why is he here? Well, he was uprooted. He wished to be there, studying in an American university in Palestine. But you wanted his land over there. But you're saying, but since he has come here, he has to change his nature. He no longer should be identifying as Palestinian. He should be identifying as American, or at least, European, British, Syrian, whatever he wants to identify. He should shut his fucking mouth and identify as whatever the fuck he wants to identify, except Palestinian, because that doesn't count. We already got that land. And she should never mind the plight of other Palestinians that which we want their land, because what? Why is, the 4 or 5 white guys in the room are totally, I think the word is oblivious to this 90-pound gorilla that is, you uprooted the guy. You destroyed his civilization as a Palestinian fellow on this planet. He's a doctorate student, has eventually worked this out, that at the very end, he came up with the conclusion that Western civilization, headed by the British, followed through by Uncle Sam's managers, was responsible and is responsible for his uprooting and his family's uprooting and the current new uprooting of the natives of the land in Asia, those brown and black people. He has figured this out, and he's protesting this uprooting business, this kind of brutal behavior in order to kill or uproot a whole bunch of people. He's protesting that, and all 4 white people agree that he has no right to protest that. He should understand that he's living in a white empire which we wish to rule over planet Earth, and as a subject of a white empire, he doesn't have a right to agree or disagree. He has to go along with whatever it is and shut his mouth. Well, that's very racist of you. And this is when I heard Mr. Bill Maher refer to internet as a cesspool. Mr. Bill Maher, do you believe that if you believe in the idea of democracy, which you don't have, the idea of democracy is from many voices come one. But the idea, it starts from many voices. What is internet? Many voices. Many of these voices don't vote. Many of these voices can't vote. Many of these voices are not white. Many of these voices don't identify as you, and their interest does not match exactly your interest. So anybody whose interest does not match your interest is part of the cesspool. And Bill Maher's studio is the only cleanse place. That's very, presumptuous of you, Mr. Bill Maher, to think that's the whole, again, idea that my penis is the best penis. My studio is the only clean place. the only holy place. The rest of this internet, the rest of this world is a cesspool. Internet is a true representation. If you leave internet alone with no manipulation, which we already know that you can't, white people cannot let go of manipulating the internet, because the facts on the internet, on the free internet, the facts are clear about, white people and their tendency to try to rule over everyone. This colonialism by force. I mean, we have had empires, but empires which if they didn't build, they weren't so destructive. Let's put it this way: empire based on colonies and extracting as much as possible from the colonies to feed the center, they don't last very long. The whole idea of, when you live so fast, you don't last long. When you go through an empire, the empire becomes too exploitive. It will not last long. A fairer order lasts a lot longer than a very unfair order. When it's very lopsided, it is bound to tip over. And the only way you will fix this lopsidedness is to start taxing the rich handsomely and start handing out universal basic income. Not to make China an enemy, not to go to another war in order to inject a lot of liquidity in the world, not to want to own the Iranian shit as well, for BlackRock and Goldman Sachs want to share Iran as well, so let's go to war. No. We don't need any of that. Why do they hate Western civilization? It's because Western civilization keeps destroying their civilization. Start from the Koreans and the Vietnamese and all throughout Africa, the whole of Africa, which at one point was belonged to white people, white colonies. All of Africa was named after a different country in Europe. South America, North America. Would you want me to say it again? White imperialism? That's the thing. You look at your domination is the only way possible. Is if we as white people dominate the world, and therefore China has to be put in its box. Mr. Pierce Morgan actually said China has to be put in their box. This coming from the white people the British, who basically treated Chinese as animals, and Indians as animals. The whole Asia, the whole Africa, as far as the British are concerned, are animals. This is Piers Morgan, a well-known personality of British journalism. Fuck you and your journalists. He's outright saying that we are better. What is about you better, Mr. Piers Morgan? You got more blood on your hand? Yes, you won that race. Well, until there was also Attila the Hun, and there was also the Mongols. Uncle Sam's managers have got a lot in their hand. Here's the thing, Mr. Bill Maher. I mean, how much hypocrisy. Have you noticed how many wars the Western civilization, how many wars have they forced on the natives of all over this planet? Then you say, why would they wish us ill? Well, if you stop fucking them up the ass, maybe they stop wishing you ill. He hoped for Western. He hoped for destruction of Western civilization because you already destroyed his civilization. What do you expect? Hugs and kisses? That's the thing. The white people who run the Western civilization think the only civilization that counts is theirs. Their home should be safe, their citizens should be safe, their wealth should be safe, their borders should be safe, their job should be safe, their everybody else, who cares? That's how you can exploit other people through this colonialism business if you continue to look at other people as less than you. Iraqis, less than us. Palestinians, certainly less than us. Saudis, of course they're less than us. No, Mr. Bill Maher, the Saudis are not going to accept Palestinians, neither are the Jordanians, nor the Egyptians, and nor should they, because you're uprooting these motherfuckers. You uproot them, you own them. And if you're killing them, if you kill them as it is, you're killing them, you own their blood. Their blood is on your hand. End of story. Just like the blood of a whole bunch of black South Africans who were killed during the apartheid, and all those Africans who were killed by the Europeans during the colonial era, the blood of all those people are on the European hand. If you uproot them, you own them. If you kill them, their blood is on your hand. There is no way about this. The way about it is don't uproot them, don't kill them, live next to them. Who's going to hurt? Yes, the Palestinians didn't start. Here's the thing, the Palestinians, I guess now they wish they did, but the Palestinians didn't start firebombing the Ashkenazi ships when they arrived. There was some uproar, and then eventually they came to an understanding and they gave shelter to the Ashkenazi. Palestinians started firebombing the settler Ashkenazi once the settler Ashkenazi decided that no, they want to have an exclusive white settlements called Israel in Arabian Peninsula, independent of all the Arabs. That's when the Palestinians started throwing firebombs, because to have an independent state you need an independent border, and since you declare this state to be Jewish state or white state, all the members should be Jewish and white, and or white. No, white and or Jewish, but certainly white. Then means you have to run all the brown people out who just happen to be, Muslim. A lot of Jewish people, Orthodox, who don't want to be part of the government, don't want to be part of the military, they just like to live there. And those are the true Jewish. That's the true way the Jewish people should live in Palestine, as part of the Arabian Peninsula. Integrated with the native population, if they want to live there at all. So, when you said he wishes for destruction of Western civilization, the answer is, does it help you, Mr. Bill Maher, to know that he's Palestinian and Western civilization is responsible for destruction of his civilization already, and the further destruction of it, and wiping it off of it, and you expect him to come to your land and overnight become either Jewish or Christian and go to church and forget about all his religious customs back home? No Sharia here. Are you kidding me? You want to put him through the washing machine first, or you want to just, the new colors should go on top of the old colors? Mr. Bill Maher, this Hamas business. Hamas is the natives. You can put it Hamas or Hamas and Hamas. They're not very into names over there. I remember my father told me that his father didn't have a last name. You know, when you live in a very tumultuous part of this planet, and many come and go, many empires overrun through thousands of years, when the when a system is not disturbed for a very long time, eventually becomes a caste system like the British, and eventually last name matters a lot, and eventually many people end up with being with many last names. I mean, you know, some of these Spanish names are a mile long because, you know, they have been stable for a very long time, and these names kept on adding, and in order to keep their status, people kept jamming all the names of the whole tribe, whoever came before them, into their name in order to increase their status. But, you know, if you have been overrun by multiple empires from left and right for a very long time, sometimes, just let's say, just as you have been overrun recently by an empire, by some outside force, people get lost, many are lost, and people are displaced, so you end up living with only your first name. And then slowly again this starts developing generation after generation. You know, eventually they will know the son by the name of the father, and they would say Ben this or Ebne that, which means the son of, if the father is better known, the son goes by the father's name and becomes Ebne this and Ebne that. But my point, and then eventually again last names develop, but, you know, soon after the collapse due to outside or inside explosion or implosion, soon after the collapse, the last names don't matter much, so nobody uses them for a long time until status becomes important in the society again. But that's what I'm trying to say, that part of the Middle East have been overrun many times. Names don't matter much. Forget, you know, they don't have last names, and names really doesn't matter. So you want to call it Hamas or Hummus, it really doesn't matter what you call it. The natives are civilians who are displaced, who are treated like shit. The men of the fighting age get together, many of them, and form groups in order to try to protect their civilians from the harsh treatment of the invading settlers, invading force, which in that case is Israel and the Europeans, white people, the Ashkenazi white people, the Ashkenazi variety of white people, the Jewish variety of white people who have settled in Israel. The natives are all under attack. What do you expect, Mr. Bill Maher? If aliens, you know, attack Earth, wouldn't you be the first one to join some kind of an underground human movement in order to form resistant cells against an invading alien force? Of course you would. Well, Israel are white people alien to Asia, invading Asia. The natives have formed, you know, large or small cells of resistance, the men of fighting age. That gender on your planet that is more aggressive has fought, of the natives have formed resistant groups in order to fight off against the invading white people from northern part of the northern hemisphere. Call it whatever you want. You think this resistive force is going to go away, and the more land you take from them, the more people you push around, the greater this resistance force is going to become. That's why the more you cut into your arm, the bigger your wound get, the more plaques are activated in your blood, and the more defensive measures is taken by your body in order to close this fucking gap on your arm. The worse it is, the more inflammation is going to form in order to close this gap. What part of this is hard to understand? An invading force has gone of European white people from Europe have invaded Asia and has settled down and is pushing more and more brown people out back. And you're saying, why doesn't Saudi Arabia take some of these motherfuckers? They're brown. What's the difference? So you uproot them, you own them. Better solution, if you don't want their customs in your neighborhood, don't uproot them in their neighborhood. Certainly don't expect them to change their nature, their customs, because you are not comfortable with their customs. They are comfortable with their customs, and they were living in their land that is of that custom. Leave them the fuck alone, and you don't have to smell them. And that's the thing, Mr. Bill Maher. Once you start uprooting people from around the world or around your empire, and some of them end up at your doorstep, and then you start seeing that you can't, you're not sure who you can trust and who you can't trust. Look at, I'm trying to say that, look at near the end of the French Empire. Near the end of the French Empire, the French state became very police-like. Secret police and the regular police became a police state, because that's the natural order of things. When you are at the center of the empire, the center of empire eventually becomes a police state. Why? First is because, first and foremost, the most important reason is because of all this uprooting that these Western empires do. Eastern empires don't do a lot of this uprooting. This is very, because of, uprooting happens because of brutality of the empire. Uprooting happens because of, you just want to brutally go in and take over their lands, so violence happens, and people, go out with the shirt on their back. People are expected to go out with the shirt on their back, because nobody's buying their land from them. They're being forced out of their land with the shirt on their back. So it's a way of, you can say it's a way of wealth transfer. Wealth transfer. This wealth is being transferred from Palestinians to the Israelis, because land is wealth. Wealth is a forceful transfer of wealth from brown people to white people. It was your land, and now today it's my land without payment. So you're forcing these people, you're breaking up this civilization, forcing these people off their land, giving the land to a bunch of white people who were not there until yesterday. Oh, they were there 3,000 years ago. Yes, my ancestors were in Africa 50,000 years ago. Doesn't make me an African, or doesn't make me have any rights to African land. Salute. So when you uproot a lot of these people, imagine Minnesota is filled with some white people originally who went there of their own free will, or not even their own free will, because their empire, their kings back home mistreated the peasants, so the peasants, the European peasants, of their own free will, because they've been mistreated, they left Europe and ended up in America. Now imagine in Minnesota, the way I understand it, I never been there, but the way I understand it is there's a large group of Muslims, large group of Ming or Hmong. That's the Vietnamese tribe that somehow was involved on your side in the Vietnam War, and then some Somalians, some this, some that. So you see, just one state, forget about New York, that's got from 200 countries in the world. But in one state, you got from 3-4 different places, some Afghans, some, who knows, some Iraqis. You get more people from more places because these are the people you uprooted. But these are the friendly ones. The ones who are willing to, uproot themselves, just just to get away from your next bombing. Sort of like, why don't I take the initiative and leave to a safer place, i.e., go live next to the white man, because I don't want down the line 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, or 150 years, white people are going to come and eventually uproot me. So why don't I just join the white man in the white man's land? But don't expect him to come without his Sharia. I don't like his Sharia, but he's not going to let go of his customs. Don't expect him to let go of his customs. You already uprooted him. If you expect him to lose his customs, well, you're asking for much. And as a white man, you don't see it. I understand you don't see it that way, but believe me, you're expecting for much. If you expect him both to change his location and his customs. The golden rule, I understand you call it. Don't do to others what you won't do others do unto you. So you're eventually going to have a police state at the heart of the empire because of so many uprooted people have ended up at the center of your empire. Again, you don't want that. Don't try to own everyone, everywhere, all the time. Don't try to own all of the real estate. Don't try to own all of the resources. Go along to get along, do business with them, and don't try to own them. In that way, more people will not be uprooted from new places, and everybody can do business. And because people are not uprooted from those strange places, you don't have any problem. You don't add to the problems of your neighborhood, Mr. Bill Maher. If you don't uproot people from those strange places, you won't add new problems to your neighborhood, Mr. Bill Maher. The problem with the empire is that, it just goes against decency to say that not only we're going to uproot them, we're just going to cut them right there. Just cut their heads off right there. Then we don't have to worry about them moving to Los Angeles. That's just, it's 21st century, goes a bit against decency and common sense, so people stop doing that. After the British, people stopped doing that. Do you want to go the way Piers Morgan is suggesting and go back to cutting non-whites' heads off just because they're non-white? The way the British did? And you should expect, and I should expect, and everybody who has a simple thought in their head should expect that the police state will because it's an empire. At this stage of an empire, you become a police state because you have so many voices, you have uprooted so many people from four corners of the empire. They eventually have found their way to the center of empire, and you feel you cannot trust any of them, so you form a police state. And an empire which has become a police state in order to keep security eventually will find itself a French Guyana kind of a deal, or El Salvador kind of a deal, or the British Guyana kind of a deal, to house all the people they don't want in a very economic fashion with very little laws to protect them. Because you asked for it. You wanted the white empire. You got a white empire with New York as its center. And you got a New Yorker to run the empire for you. What do you want? It was like Guantanamo is not big enough and not practical enough. But French Guyana is perfect. El Salvador is perfect, just far enough to say we can't take anything back. Once we send them, we hope that they die of some kind of tropical disease over there and don't return. Because you got an empire. Locking up citizens at the heart of the empire becomes very expensive for the empire, especially because the rich people don't want to chip in. This all goes back to the issue at this stage of empire. The empire can be taken care of by providing universal basic income. You can continue a peaceful empire by you providing universal basic income and encouraging your citizens to travel around the empire. You can continue the empire for a very long time in this way, to the benefit of everybody, but you're not getting there. The rich don't think they should give up a penny of the wealth that they have been able to accumulate. They think the poor should be directed towards China as a problem, Russia as a problem, Islamic fundamentalism as a problem. Islamic fundamentalism is Islamic fundamentalism in the motherfucking Middle East. If you leave them alone over there, you don't have to deal with Islamic fundamentalism in Minnesota or Tennessee or Los Angeles. But you never left them alone, did you? Your corporations want more, so they go after more. So sometimes a lot of that Islamic fundamentalism sticks to their shoes and they bring it home. It's a natural order of things. So yes, you're going to have El Salvador, and if you're not careful, many people, many citizens are going to just end there because it's just cheaper to keep them there. And why, the question you have to ask is, why do you have to lock so many people up that you have to worry about the expense, how expensive it is to lock them up? Well, if you have educated them well enough, you wouldn't have so many criminals in jail if you have trained them well enough to live in your societies without criminal activity in order to make ends meet. If you have taken care of your citizens properly, you wouldn't have so many in jail. Now, would you? The reason you have so many in jail is because you didn't take care of them. The mother's drug addict and trying to make money through sexual favors, and the father himself is in jail, and the school doesn't teach him how to read or any usable skills, and then he has to make ends meet in a very capitalist society that is really not concerned with his or her welfare. What do you expect? he ends up in jail, and then you say the jail is too expensive. We want to send him somewhere where jail is cheap. So you didn't educate and create, you didn't bring about the good citizens because you didn't want to spend the money and the resources, because the money and resources was used in Afghanistan, in Iraq and Iran and Syria and Libya and Jidya and Pidia and Kidia and Titia. All of this because BlackRock and Goldman Sachs want to share the resources of these countries. So the money that had to be used to raise good citizens was used to invade other lands and push a lot of their natives into your land because you have uprooted them and you're responsible for them, and now you're unsatisfied with their home countries, customs of their home countries, such as Sharia law. Well, I guess you would be the first one to stand in line to punch BlackRock and Goldman Sachs in the face, Mr. Bill Maher. I think you and Steve Bannon and everybody else should be the first one to stand in line to punch all these rich people and rich corporations in the face and say, no, you hand over 99% of your income so we can divide it equally up between all the 350 million citizens of our land, so everybody can have a normal standard of life without us trying to blame the Chinese and the Indonesians and the Malaysians and the Canadians and the Mexicans. Everybody's to blame except our rich people. They've done the right thing. I love it when I see Mr. Wonderful going on TV and saying, your problem is not that I've accumulated all the wealth in our society. Your problem is the other society. I'm sorry, Mr. Wonderful, if you have accumulated all the wealth in our society, how is that makes the Chinese peasants the peasant problem? How is it that you conclude that the Chinese peasant is the reason for the poverty in your tribe? Mr. Wonderful, you live in your own tribe. If the poverty in your tribe is not because of the peasants of the other tribe or the leaders of the other tribe, it's because of you, because you're one of the leaders of your tribe. No, as a rich person in a capitalist democracy, you're one of the people in charge with the donations that you do, with the candidates you favor. That means you're in charge. You have been in charge, and many of your people are now impoverished while you are very rich. That's their wealth that is in your hand. End of story. Chinese peasants getting paid $500 a month to put phones together has not robbed your citizens. By numbers, it seems you have robbed your citizens. Not robbed, Mr. Wonderful, Mr. Elon Musk, Mr. Jeff Bezos. Not really robbed, but in a way robbed. Yes and no. It's a robbery. Yes, maybe yes. You have accumulated more of the citizens' productivity. You have accumulated more of your tribal members' productivity than you have allowed them to keep. So more of their productivity collectively has come to you than it has gone to them. That's why you're wealthier and they're poorer. The collective productivity has not been distributed fairly. End of story. But Mr. Piers Morgan, as a representative of the British upper class, the British rich people, comes and says, no, China is the problem. China is the enemy. China is the problem. No. London is one of the richest cities in the world. The people who live in London own half the fucking planet. And New York owns the other half. What the fuck the Chinese peasants has to do with this. 90%, 9 out of 10, or maybe 8 out of 10 wealthiest people on this planet live in Uncle Sam's land. How is it that that's the Chinese peasant's problem? How is it that you're trying to tell the average white guy that the Chinese peasant has stolen your job? Yes, the Chinese peasant may have not stolen, but was willing to do the job for much cheaper, $500 a month. But he certainly hasn't stolen a job. If a job is paying you shit, you don't really steal it from anybody. There's no fight going on over a job that is paying $5 an hour, $5 an hour. For a job that is paying $1 an hour, nobody's fighting over it. The Chinese were willing to do it, but there were no takers. So now, instead of Mr. Wonderful saying, "Oh, the way we did business, and so I was able to use that $1 an hour labor in order to then sell my product for tenfold, with tenfold profits, and able to pocket all the collective added productivity in my bank account, I'm not the problem. The Chinese peasant is your problem." This is what Mr. Wonderful is saying, all these average white folks, the 90%. It's like, no, I'm not the problem. I don't have your money. Go to the Chinese peasants. I paid him $1 a day. You should go grab that. Let's go to war with China. White people. So again, Mr. Bill Maher, you have problem with Sharia law. Solution. This is conclusion. You have problem, and you, Steve Bannon, and Tucker Carlson have a problem with Sharia law. Great. Don't go to the Middle East. Don't go uproot the Middle Easterners, because you understand their custom is Sharia law. If you don't take your settlements there, don't introduce new white people there, don't try to form a gated community of white people in West Asia, on Arabian Peninsula. If you don't do any of that, then you will not uproot those people who follow the Sharia customs. You will not uproot them, which will result into some of them finding their way into your neighborhood. And when they land there, you certainly cannot ask them to forget their customs either. At least for many generations. At least for a few generations. And don't ask them to forget their name. Arab people have Arab names. Chinese people have Chinese names. Don't expect them to forget their names, their culture, their language, their customs, everything that goes with custom. The religion is part of their customs. The custom is not part of the religion. The religion is part of the custom. You have already uprooted them. How self-righteous of you to expect them to now change their nature. You're no longer a Palestinian, Muslim Palestinian. Now you're a white Baptist. You're no longer a white Muslim Palestinian living in Palestine. Now you're a white Baptist living next to Bill Maher. Oh, that's that. As far as domestic matters, stop once you understand that you can. Everybody's okay with you having an empire as long as you don't try to displace so many people. Then automatically you will as a result, you don't need such a big military if you don't think grabbing land and pocketing profit is the most important thing in the world. If you don't think that way, then you don't need a big military. Then the money from the military goes into education and housing and healthcare, and in that way you're taking care of your citizens, and the the money for that, the added productivity that is needed to provide out these services is already coming out of your factories, except that they're mostly automated. And all you have to do is, tax rich people and print money and provide your natives with universal basic income. Let the foreigners have the factories. Your citizens can still have a good life as long as you provide them with universal basic income. Just stop wasting money on military. Because very few people benefit from all this military activity. You keep advising North Korea that why is North Koreans are hungry, why are these people spending so much money on the military, the North Koreans are crazy, he's a megalomaniac, the Kim family, the Kun family, these people are crazy, why do Iranians want nuclear weapons, this is crazy, they don't have bread to eat. But you don't see yourself in the mirror. You don't have bread to eat, you don't have bad healthcare, you have bad housing, you have bad education, and you're still spending 90% of your budget on the military or military related activity. 80% of budget, 70% of it, 60% of it. You're spending a large chunk of your budget in military, and they want more of it. Why? Because the rich want to get richer. Rich white people want to get richer. The 90% white people that I have to deal with, they're just doing okay, barely doing okay, because the system was not designed for them. This system is designed for rich white people. The rest of us, whether domesticated or foreign, we are in danger from the rich white people. And no, this starting to behave more like the British Empire and the French Empire by having these, creating foreign prison camps such as El Salvador, such as French Guyana, prison colonies with a dictator as a ruler, not such a great idea. Because, then, anybody you don't want to even deal with under any kind of people you don't want to give human rights to, you will send them. If you don't send them to Palestine and bomb them right after. I just read something on Twitter that one of these senators had written that some senator from South Carolina had written that we should go save Iraq by bombing Iran and attacking Iran. We should go save Iraq by attacking Iran. And I'm like, so we should save Israel by attacking Egypt and Jordan, and then to save Egypt and Jordan we attack Iraq, and then by save Iraq we attack Iran, then to save Iran we attack Pakistan and Afghanistan again. China, certainly to save Taiwan we have to attack China. To save 5 million we're going to attack 1 billion people. The Sane Society. The Sane Society. I'm sorry, Mr. Bill Maher. In fact, instead of jail, you should be interviewing that Palestinian guy, Mr. Bill Maher. You should be interviewing him and asking him, why do you ask for destruction of Western civilization, you motherfucker? And then he would answer you. Probably he would say, because, well, you did it to us. Why do you think it's so horrible if I wish it for you? Because you already did it to me. And you're doing it to me. You're destroying my civilization. And then Mr. Bill Maher has to, try to tell the Palestinian that, dude, you're a savage. You don't have a civilization. Look at me. I'm a white man. Look at my penis. I am the civilized one, and you didn't have a civilization. We brought you civilization. And then the true nature of Bill Maher comes out. That is, the true nature of Bill Maher and Piers Morgan is the same. White supremacy. White imperialism. The natives are always savage, and they don't have a culture, a civilization, or the right to exist. Apparently. But I could be wrong. Again, this is, for my interrogators before they send me to El Salvador. I could be wrong. These are all things that, comes to my mind, with the help of the wine. But it's just, I can't find any answer for these questions from any of your supposed thought leaders. Because apparently your thought leaders are working for Goldman Sachs and BlackRock, and certain facts, they're paid not to understand or count certain facts, as is the case with Bill Maher and other progressives who are pro-colonialism, and other uninformed Republicans who are also pro-colonialism but anti-refugee. And they think, there is a possibility there. Yeah, there is a possibility there to be colonialist as an anti-refugee. Is that once you take over Taiwan, you expect for the Chinese to accept the Taiwanese, and once you take over China, you expect the Russians to take in the Chinese, as you have taken over part of Arabian Peninsula, and you expect Saudi Arabia to accept more Arabs. And then you take over a whole of Arabian Peninsula. I guess at that point you expect the Iranians to take in Arabs, because now you own Arabian Peninsula. This is white imperialism. You keep invading other people's land and pushing the natives back, and you expect other natives to accept the natives that you just uprooted. Eventually, all the races end up in Easter Island, and the rest of the planet Earth is owned and operated by white people, and a few brown and black people that the white people trust or like. That would be the Indians in the government. Yeah, the British Empire also started using Indians in their bureaucracy by the end. and in their military. Used conquered people to conquer new people. But as long as they don't follow their old customs.